Joining me in the kit room today is Guy Fulford from Harken. Guy, welcome to the kit room.
How are you doing? Nice to be here.
Yeah, great to have you here. Tell us about Harken. How did they come about? How long have they been going?
Okay, so Harken is a company, we are getting close to being 60 years old. Primarily, we come from the sailing world, where we're a hardware manufacturer, making pulleys, winches, moving anchor point options for sailboats, from the smallest dinghy up to the biggest race boats. A big part of our pedigree is racing. So we're very much involved in grassroots all the way up to kind of the America's Cup race boats, where we're kind of a key designer manufacturer for a lot of the hardware there.
I really love hearing how different companies that we work with have started. It normally starts in a very specific area. Yours is obviously sailing, others might be climbing or whatever, and then they find a way into wider industry. So you can apply those same principles to rescue equipment, health and safety, PPE, etc.
Yeah, there's a lot of shared knowledge and there's a lot of crossover, and definitely kind of the key goals are all there about efficiency, performance, and then it becomes a case of how you can transfer that knowledge and technology into kind of new and interesting markets.
Fantastic. Well, Guy has brought in just a small selection of Harken's range today, but some really key pieces of kit which I'm sure you're going to enjoy. The first piece of kit you bought for us, Guy, is the Ninja. So I got excited about that. I thought we were going to be like jumping off rooftops and doing some kung fu or something, but apparently it's not about that.
It's an emotive name. I know you've dressed for it, but no, we're going to keep it kind of calm and steady. So the Ninja MultiAscend is one of our new products. Fundamentally, it's kind of trying to change the way that we kind of do ascent in rope access. It's the kind of follow-up to our foot ascender, which is based on the same principle of a twin cam system rather than a single cam with teeth. So as a product, what we've got is something that's considered a single point of connection rather than a half point. Far more rope kind, but a lot more usable. The twin cam system doesn't have teeth, which makes it a lot easier to release, reduces rope wear. So it's really viable for rescue options, but it's got extremely low drag. It has a locking cover plate, which makes you totally secure on inclines as well as vertical. And one of the nice features for down climbing is these two tabs on the side that operate the cams inside. So it makes it a lot easier to release under load and down climb rather than having to do anything funky with your finger that gets near teeth. So as a product, it's retrofittable to most harnesses. Little tweaks needed to go on the various designs and fixtures, but it's meant to be an all-rounder that's going to kind of really stand by somebody and make working a lot more robust.
I like the idea of what you talked about right at the beginning of that, about how it's going to less wear and tear on the rope that's going through it.
So one of the big things with any kind of ascent, descent device is efficiency. And you gain efficiency by not having so much kind of penetration of the rope. Though teeth can be the hardest part when you're operating with an ascender in terms of releasing, whether it's to get yourself off the rope or whether it's actually releasing a casualty. You are overcoming kind of a metal barb that's inside the rope, but that is also always plucking and doing a little damage to the outer sheath of the rope. So this just removes that as a factor, means that to release you have to unweight it ever so slightly, but the twin cam means we're always pinching the rope, so kind of the harder you pull, the more the cams bite in without ever actually ripping or shredding. And
that release, is it made easier, you're saying, without your fingers getting too close to the mechanism?
Absolutely, yeah, totally on the outside. So there's some new muscle memory that needs to be used on this, or learnt. It's a latch on the front cover, and then it lifts up.
Yeah, that is different to others that I've seen.
Yeah, it's a different direction. The nice thing is it means that your cover plate is always going to kind of default to close, but it's just a little kind of re-education in terms of what you do.
Anything that makes that easier, because I see people, everyone knows here I'm not the technical person at Reacts, but I see people training all the time and they're fiddling trying to get this thing released so they can go up again. If that makes that job slightly easier and safer, that's great.
Yeah, absolutely, it works. I mean, the nice thing to see is this in action in a rescue. So it's definitely kind of a new direction and slightly kind of improved kind of ergonomics in terms of how it can function. The other nice feature is we can use this well as a rope grab. So it's rated as a rope grab device as well, which is a very slick operation, very easy to kind of open and close, get onto a line. So it is why we call it a multi-ascender. It can be used in different applications, not just in one.
That's a really useful point to know. So that's one of the things that Harken are really known for, is the Ninja. But the other, which I'm really excited to see because I've never seen one, is the clutch. And you've brought one of those in for us today. So I know reading about it and the instructors here talking about the clutch, that it was a bit of a game changer when it came out in the industry. Why was that?
The clutch is a progress capture device. So that means we have a pulley sheave, effectively, that is allowing us to get this efficiency with the rope in a hauling system, or a raise and lower. This is a 316 stainless steel sheave with a faceted internal feature. It's designed for a 10.5 to 11 mil rope, so it's quite a narrow rope range, but that works for most technical rescue rope access. The sheave is on a camming arm, which is controlled naturally by the lever. The idea behind the clutch was to have a design that was very similar to most ascenders on the market, so it was intuitive. So we have the same kind of system. We have a handle operating at the rear. This handle is ergonomically designed with tactile points, so you can feel when it's clicking through the different features. We've got positions marked up on the back with an identifier down here so that you always know what position it's in. Okay. So it's clear to the user. The first position we got here is stop. So if you had this in a hauling system, or maybe in a system with tension lines, and you wanted to effectively park and lock the device, then you'd put it in stop mode. That just applies extra pinch between the sheave and the friction plate inside the body. And when we're in a hauling system, we will move it to the standby mode. That standby mode does have a bit of flexibility, but that releases a little bit of pressure. It always has the rope kind of being captive. So when you're pulling through...
So you get a sense of feel on that?
Yeah, much, much lighter, so easier to pull through, but it's always pinching and binding. So as soon as you stop pulling, the load is held. Then we flip over into our lowering range. So the lowering range is actually pretty big. Which is great for sensitivity. You've got a lot of control when you're lowering. And then we do go through to an anti-panic, which if you go too quickly, it'll lock off. Or if you're on an extremely light load, it might be that you're kind of just trying to find the friction or fight the friction. But to reset, you just put the handle up to the top and you're back into lowering. We've got a mechanical advantage system in the handle that helps. So if you go into a two-person rescue, or a high load situation, when you come out of this and you're into a lowering phase, there's a mechanical advantage aid that reduces the load on the handle. So it means you're not fighting the lever. You've still got a range of travel for controlling a descent. And that is one of the key features. Under a two-person load, you've still got adjustability rather than the operating range really can narrow on some devices. So from a control point of view, lots of versatility. Another key feature of the design is that it is a one-use device. There are no extra friction points. You use it the same way for a single-person load or a two-person load. That simplifies kind of the thinking for an operator. It means you don't have to kind of do something additional. So keeping it user-friendly, making sure that there's minimal complexity to it in the field is a big deal. And it's a feature we focus on. Moving around to the body of it, we've got a permanent anchor point, which is large enough for most carabiner gates to roll through, so you've got adjustability. It means you never have to disconnect this from your rigging plate, your harness, whatever your connection is, whatever your deployment. We have a 22 kilonewton rated Beckett on the side of the device. So if we're building this into a hauling system, that would be the point, acting as our little rigging plate, that we start to build the pulley system. The nice thing is the pulley system kind of grows out from the device, so it doesn't get congested, it doesn't get jammed up, and you've got a lot of control. And then the other detail, which is always a little confusing with our little 2X, is it's a double phase opening mechanism.
Okay.
So
you can't make a mistake, and you've got to be intent on opening it before.
yeah, so all these devices have like a double mechanism minimum from a safety point of view. You should never be able to just release and open any of these devices, including carabiners, in one movement. So that double latch, nice, audible, and you've got to release the button each time to open it. But what we've got throughout this device is very tactile, very audible indicators with the opening mechanism.
Yeah, I like here, if I'm getting tight on this, Alan, on the camera, but it's actually made for a thumb to fit into that position, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But everything is about feedback on this. You've got the feedback and the feel when you're in descent. You've got the feedback and the feel when you're actually hauling. In a hauling situation, the ratcheting mechanism inside the sheave is an indicator that things are happening, the system's moving. There are lots of rescue teams that use that sound as a speed control. It even falls within some of their their instructions.
I give you that added sense of it's working.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can hear it's working.
It's like an eyes off.
Yeah.
But you can hear everything.
I'm focusing on the job at hand, and that's giving me that reassurance.
Yeah,
that everything's working. It makes perfect sense. It seems a wonderful piece of kit. I hear great things about it, but the other thing I hear about is its price point.
Yeah, it's not a cheap product.
Where does it sit, kind of ballpark?
It's around about the £600 mark in the UK as a retail price. It is a multifunctional device. It's not for every person, but for anyone who's doing technical work, hauling systems, it becomes a really versatile piece of kit that you can wear, you can rig into a system. Reliable, very reliable. They've been out since 2019. We haven't seen much wear or replacement of these devices. They're lasting extremely well. Largely that's because it's entirely made of metal. We've got no plastic components in this. The wear indicators, all these elements are kind of there, showing kind of the longevity of the unit. So it is kind of an expensive item, but as we see it, it is the combination of buying a progress capture device, specific, and a descender, all in one unit.
So it's a twofer, really, isn't it? It's 2 for 1. So, I mean, you get that quite often, don't we, where a practitioner, an engineer or whatever, they love the piece of kit, but the money people turn around and say, whoa, but actually when you start to think about the cost benefit of its longevity because of the build quality, because it's 2 devices in one, it actually makes it quite doable. Yeah,
budget's always going to be a point of contention for everyone, but definitely we've seen it become a firm favourite in the industry.
I get a list of the products that our manufacturers are bringing in to show us, and on the list I saw the Ninja, got excited about that. Got slightly worried when I saw Wingman. I thought, are we in Top Gun? Are we off out on the night out? Or am I that scary you're bringing someone with you? And you're actually holding your Wingman in your hand there.
I know. It's a compact Wingman, but hey, size isn't everything.
What is it?
So the Wingman is our pre-rigged 4-to-1 pulley system. So there's a few on the market. What makes ours different is that we have a lowering control that is adjustable, auto-locking, but releases under load without any issues. So the main design targets for this were in rescue situations for the unit to be used within litter articulation, so rescue litters when we need to transfer them from a horizontal position to a vertical, where this can then be included within the bridle. And if you just hold that end, we can show we've got a locking mechanism on this that instantly bites, but the device closes very compact.
Again, I can hear that ratcheting sound, which is so reassuring that the mechanism's working.
Yeah, so that is a nice feature of Harken. It's something that we've brought from the sailing world that we're known for.
Yeah, when you're winching up a sail and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it is something that we're extremely good at. One of the nice features is the lowering control here that allows us to one-handed operate this device. So you can effectively be tailing the line and controlling it. So in a rescue operation, that frees up the litter attendants, other hand, so they can actually maneuver and articulate the rescue litter. Another use for this is for the attendant themselves to be attached onto the litter bridle. So when you are articulating or moving a rescue litter, maybe up a cliff face, maybe on the side of a building, the attendant doesn't always stay in one place. They have to move to adapt to the terrain they're working on. So this gives them a connection point that they can adjust, maneuver themselves, raise, lower, get themselves exactly where they need to be. And again, that one-handed operation for lowering and hauling with an instant bite just makes it that bit easier for them.
If something goes wrong and you let go, it's like a handbrake on the whole system, isn't
Absolutely.
it?
Spring-loaded,
Bang,
auto stop, defaults back to that lock position.
In terms of lifespan on a piece of kit like this, is it standard 10 years for all the parts? Or?
Yeah, I mean, the hardware will last you indefinitely. The mechanism on this is very similar to the clutch, that we've got a camming sheave. So we bite the rope between a slightly textured sheave and the body. So it's very low wear on the rope. The rope can be replaced. That's very easily done with kind of the provided spare part. But again, it's a low wear product that should last a very long time in use.
And is there a maximum diameter on the rope? Is it on that?
So the rope is a single product, so it's a sterling rope, but we supply that as a spare.
Okay.
So that is a specific product. It's not one that you kind of buy your own and rethread your own way.
Good to know.
So that's part of the certification process on this. It's also how we manage the loads and the capability. So the device is rated to 3 kilonewtons in a hauling system. It is a 4-to-1 system, as we've shown here, but we have the lowering control at one end only, which means in some orientations, you need the lowering control to be kind of up at the top. In which case, we'd run the rope through a redirect, be that a carabiner or a pulley, which then makes it a 5-to-1. But we use these to help support kind of tripod systems, monopauls as a tensionable anchor. And we've now, so this is the sort of the standard version, is the 3-meter throw. So that's a...
And it comes in different sizes?
Yeah, we've now got a 9-meter and a 15-meter.
Okay.
So the 3-meter throw has 15 meters of rope, so it's 3 meters fully opened with a 3-meter tail. But the 9-meter and the 15-meter have really been brought out to look at confined space work, confined space rescue, where you've got a cheap, easy, controllable solution that you can fit in and utilize.
And you've got on the table, it comes in the pouch, does it, with the rope?
Yeah, it comes with a bag, so store the
Preloaded.
rope. You can keep the device kind of secure and accessible up at the top. What we can see, we've got one just set up on the rescue litter here. So this is kind of how you might include it within a bridle. Ignore the bridle, this is just mocked together. But in this instance, we've got the bag stored on the rails, so you've got a nice tidy place to put the rope.
Yeah.
Keep it all out of the way, but you've got everything you need to be able to kind of fully operate and deploy.
And you talked about it being able to be rigged there, but you also talked about it being rigged to a tripod. And today you've brought in a really excellent piece of kit. I've been watching videos about this in preparation, the TerrAdaptor.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with anything from Jurassic Park, but the TerrAdaptor seems a very versatile piece of kit. What is the TerrAdaptor?
So the TerrAdaptor is a AHD, an artificial high direction. It's a technical tripod system. It's modular, made of multiple components that you can build into various different configurations. So it's a step beyond the traditional tripod that is kind of 3 legs that extend out and have a locked head position. With this product, we can create many, many different structures. And the idea of an AHD is that we are creating a skyhook, a point above, ground level, that we can position where we want to for best safety, efficiency, line management, usually to clear an edge or an obstacle. But as a tool, it's amazingly versatile, really kind of fun to work with because it's so adjustable. And one of the key features we have with it is an articulating head that has main plate with articulating brackets that allow us to change the leg angles from a a narrow footprint tripod all the way out to a horizontal beam anchor.
Well, that's super exciting. So I think we should head up to the gantry there, and we should see it in action and go into the features of the TerrAdaptor in more detail. We've moved upstairs here in our training centre in Blackpool, and Guy is going to take us through the TerrAdaptor. Amazing giant piece of kit with so many different applications. Guy, talk us through the TerrAdaptor from head to toe.
So, yeah, welcome to the TerrAdaptor. This is our technical modular tripod system. We, as I said earlier, refer to these as AHDs, artificial high directions. So what we're talking about was having a sky hook where there is no anchor. So we're building a structure. The key feature that we talked about earlier is this adjustable head unit. This is unique in the industry in terms of what it can deliver, how it works. We have a main plated system with articulating brackets, which are these orange pieces. These pieces are pinned, so they are fully adjustable with multiple hold positions that are all identified by letters. So this gives us a range of kind of leg positions from near vertical out to the horizontal, so we can create kind of beam anchors, horizontal braces. The lettering setup on this allows us to effectively create kind of playbooks, if you like, on configurations. So training being a massive part of anything in the rescue world, rope access, confined space, so you understand the equipment you're using, so you can build these playbooks, build these kind of identifiable kind of systems that you can call out when you come to a scenario or a rescue. So this head unit, articulating points, the pins are kind of captive on a bearing system, so we can kind of pull them out. We've got a central pivot pin, and then we release the outside two to actually change the articulation. Mm-hmm. The rear bracket is a symmetrical bracket. That's typically used on the rear leg. The front legs, they're asymmetrical brackets. So as we've got it set at the minute, both of those brackets are pointing the same way, which gives us a stable footprint. Everything's completely evenly balanced. What we can do is we can flip one or both of these brackets around, which can then impact the footprint slightly. But in some setups where we might want a wide spanned front leg, or we actually want to kind of compact the system and we need tube extension so that we can bring the head position down, if we had those brackets set symmetrically, the tubes would clash. So offsetting one gives us the opportunity to have those tubes cross over. So it's kind of quite a clever, unique feature. When we get into beam anchors with these as well, we can have that as a single leg beam anchor where one of these grey perforated tubes is passing through both of those brackets when they're horizontally set, and we extend out with orange tubes. Or we can offset again and make a double leg beam anchor so we can achieve greater spans for a two-person load.
And this is modular, isn't it? The tubes separate out.
So the whole thing gets built and adjusted to suit the terrain, the environment, the space. We talk about footprint a lot, but we're working our way down. So the grey perf tubes, these are all numbered 1 to 9. That gives you a visual identifier when you're building this system. They interact inside the orange tubes and the orange brackets, so the colour differentials give you an indicator of where things fit, so it makes life easier. We can extend through. We've got a lot of adjustability with these tubes and the positioning. Then we get into the gold tube, or the orange tubes, sorry. These have 2 positions and an X or Y. So where we've got the numbered holes on the grey tubes that give you some adjustability, this gives you even more control in terms of leg length. So on uneven terrain or in a confined area, it gives you that kind of variation that you can achieve most scenarios and most setups. Typically, it's grey into the head unit, orange as a spacer between another grey. The orange can kind of float anywhere within that system. Having it a little higher gives you a little bit more bending resistance in the legs, which is great for strength, but we can get this thing extended pretty high in a tripod configuration.
And that seems to me to be one of the key advantages over other tripods, is that flexibility that you've got there, the range of height, the range of angle as well.
Yeah, so traditional tripods are relatively singular in their purpose and their design. We've set this one up to be a tripod over an opening. So this is a confined space rescue situation. What we can do is we can adapt the angles of the rear legs, set these as more aggressive stances that would be used at a leading edge, either to clear a handrail like this, get over a cliff or some other obstruction. So we've got a lot of capability and versatility in how we set it up.
And then we get down towards the feet. I've seen that there's different variations of how you can foot this as well. Just for the video as well, we haven't opened the hatch yet, which is why we're not in PPE. I'm going to get out of the way in a moment, and we're going to do that. But we've got the closed hatch, so we can in a controlled environment. But the different feet gives us different anchoring solutions as well. So you talk us through that.
So what we've got fitted to the TerrAdaptor at the minute is one of the articulated feet. They're a nice product for a surface area, particularly where you want to spread the load.
Looks like a ball and joint.
Yeah, it's a ball and joint. The foot itself can be rotated. You've got various points in there for rigging, tying off, pinning through. So it's a very versatile piece of kit in terms of how you can secure it, make it good. That is one of the accessory parts. The standard part that comes with the tripod system is called our rocker foot, which is actually an extremely versatile product that will kind of lay onto most surfaces, hard, soft, spreads, transfers, can work over many angles. You've got rigging points that are rated within the foot for tie-offs, anchoring, and a nice little hidden feature here is a hook. So that hook allows you to kind of clip over an edge.
Yeah.
That could capture on a steel beam. You could then put a leg into compression so it's pinched and holding on to something. But it becomes an extremely kind of versatile piece of kit. Another foot is our talon. So the talon is something that works really well with hard ground, soft ground. In the dirt, you can properly bury this in. The shape and the design of this is really lovely for actually going over structure, be it scaffold tube, tubing, box section, lash it on. We've set up the articulated feet on the grate floor here, but that will sit over the grate and bed in really nicely.
How that would fit really well into that.
Yeah, and then you tie it on. So it's a really versatile foot, extremely kind of functional.
And these feet all come with it?
So the talon and the articulated feet are accessories. The standard kit comes with the rocker foot, which will actually work for most scenarios.
As you say, it's got that hook element there. I was thinking because of your history at Harken as well, like I've seen pictures of this rigged up on a ship where you might actually have to put one arm out and hook it onto a girder or something rather than being able to get 3 feet onto the floor. Yeah,
so the idea behind this product is that what you've got is not just a single device. You've got something you can fully adapt, but within the kit, the standard kit, you can build a tripod system of varying height. We can also separate this system out and have this as an A-frame, so just 2 legs, and a gin pole or a monopole, which is 1 leg. So in effect, you could build 2 totally separate AHD anchor structures to rig different setups. So the kit is versatile enough to be changed between different configurations of a tripod or an A-frame or a monopole to suit where you're working, or to be able to create kind of multiple points. So that becomes quite an advantage, as well as the orientation that you can put this through.
And this system, it's bigger, it actually weighs about the same or a bit lighter than a standard tripod that you carry in. That in as well.
I mean, we pack this all away into 3 bags. So we've got leg bags where all the leg tubes are stored, and I usually keep my hobble straps in there. And then there's a head bag that the head unit sits in, and I keep all of the pins, the anchor points, and the other elements. And the anchor points that I'm talking about, so this is what we call our lash ring. So this is an anchor that we can fit onto a grey perf tube anywhere. Right now it's set beneath our lockhead winch as an anchor point to stop the winch from climbing or sliding up the leg. That could be an anchor point in an anchor frame setup, which is what we've got here, for a hauling system or your backup device. Equally, that lash ring could sit on the top of one of the legs extending through and could be a tie-off point for supporting and guying the system so that it doesn't topple and it's nice and stable. Or over an edge, we could have this as an aggressive stance and we want the anchor points as high as we can or clear from the frame. So that gives us capabilities. This yoke up at the top here, we've got a 36 kilonewton rated push pin. The capacity to put a sheave for wire rope systems or hang kind of pulleys directly onto the system, as well as create other kind of points. We also have rounded holes on the top brackets in the grey plates, which are rigging points, so there's one on each of those plates.
They're rigging points, right.
We do avoid any anchors into these holes. These holes are sharp edged, but they're designed for the pin. We don't want anything going through those. But for the rigging, for the setup, we've got enough kind of anchors within play. By putting the lash rings into high points, we can create more systems. And then there is one other nice product, which is an accessory, but it's called our quick lash. So this is basically that movable anchor point or an afterthought anchor point that can be put in. So
cool.
This will pin onto a grey leg.
Yeah, you've got another anchor point straight away.
So if I was putting this as maybe an aggressive tripod system at a leading edge, that might be the anchor point that I set to create a tensioned tether line for the tripod so that it's stable, it can never go forward. Equally, that's when you've built this system and realize that you have to make a change or you want something within it, you could set this inside, outside at any point on the perf tube. So it's a really quick kind of plug and play.
Fantastic.
Anchor.
And if we get the camera in, we see we've rigged up here and you've brought your Wingman with you, all rigged up, ready to go off the system here. So we can maybe see that 4-to-1 in action while we're here.
So I've set this one up as a 5-to-1 with a redirect, which means that if this were our casualty or our load, we want the control at the head where we are, where the rescue operator is. But with that hauling system,
so simple,
super light,
so simple.
Everything defaults to lock. So it's super safe. And then the tailing on this, really smooth. Fully open, I can block, but you've got a controllable system that allows you to feather the descent. And as I mentioned earlier, this is kind of single-handed operatable. Maybe my system's not perfect for showing that right now, but it's one of the key features that really kind of works.
Guy, you set up the TerrAdaptor in a standard tripod configuration many of us would recognize, but you mentioned earlier about being able to put it into an aggressive position and its adaptability. I wonder if you could just show us how that works. By the magic of the TV, we will fast forward that, and then we'll come back and talk about how that works in more detail.
Sure. So we've changed the configuration to a more aggressive lazy leg tripod system, which is intended to give us a better anchor point and range over an edge. In this instance, we've got handrail. So talking you through the scenario, starting here, we've got some rope protection in place just to protect our rope on these edges. It could be rock, it could be sharp steel work. It's a critical thing to include. Coming up to the head, we're using a double pulley. Keeps everything nice and tracked and aligned because we're coming up and over There is a debate here about secondary systems, whether they want to be independent, lowerable. That's not something I'm getting into today because it really depends on the scenario, and we're demonstrating here. But both our lines are backed up. We've used the quick lash as an anchor point behind, so that should there be a failure on this pin, then we've got a secondary system in place. We've gone for a slightly wider leg stance to give us more range to get better stability and also clear this handrail. We can go further and adapt leg heights as well according to the terrain. So if we were on a slope, then we can adapt to all of that. Hobbles are still in place just to keep the feet nice and stable so that the structure is all locked in. Talking back from the front end, we're using the quick lash again as part of our guide system. So this is a tension system to stop any kind of movement of this structure as we apply load. Once we apply load onto this system, there will be a forward force, particularly as we're going over an edge. So what becomes a key factor in all of this is resultant forces. So this is kind of a bigger talking point. And when we're going down the route with AHDs, this is where stepping away from a traditional tripod becomes far more critical to have training, understanding of the forces, directional forces, how to manage and make the structure secure, because this is only as strong and as good as we set it up. So resultant force is a big learning point for most people, which is a combination of the load paths in the ropes, how that then affects the force angle on the anchor point. And that can be dictated by kind of the position you are over at the edge. It can be dictated by kind of the actual traverse of an edge where a rescue litter attendant might be pushing out. What we're aiming for is the resultant force acting within the footprint of this structure. That is kind of our safe area. But again, there's training for that, and that is where something like this product is kind of comes into its own, because you learn all the different scenarios and all the different configurations and the science behind it. So to tie this back, we've used the Wingman. This is obviously an adjustable system, so we can pull the tension on. When we've done that, we tie it off. That's to make it nice and secure so that we don't get any slip. Once the load gets applied onto the tripod system, the front legs will go into compression, because what we've set up is called a deviation system or a redirect system. Previously, we had the winch mounted on the leg. All of the forces were acting through the legs in compression downwards, and it was a stable structure. Once we start lifting on this, the back leg is going to go light. So we've used the talon foot down here to actually kind of grip into the grating. So that's nice and secure and stable. The Wingman is just pulling this back, engaging that rear leg into the floor, and it's going to keep us upright and stop the TerrAdaptor from going forward. You sometimes need to look at kind of additional side supports in this, depending on kind of how and where you are. But the wider we can set the front feet, the greater the footprint, the more the stability in the lateral forces. So moving back, not tripping over my lead. We've got a twin line system set up. So we've got main anchors down at the bottom. We've got a rigging plate. We've got two lines that will keep tension at all times, and I've got both of those lines running through the clutches, which are then set to lock and hold. From the clutches, we can create a hauling system. What we have done here is a simple system. So it's a 3-to-1. I'm using the Ninja MultiAscend as a rope grab, one on each line, and then I've threaded one of our Apex Direct 1.1s, which fits nicely through the shackle. So that's become my hauling system. So with this, I'm able to kind of manage both lines at once, which means that our backup and our primary line are both sharing the load, but should there be a failure on either line, we've still got one that's engaged, so we should see zero kind of impact to the casualty and the rescue attendant. So everything's set up. We've got the tripod in place. We've got our tension guy line back. Hauling system is built. All of our backups are set and in place. So all we're missing now is Matt. Where's Matt? Can we start?
So, at last,
they finally let me loose on a piece of equipment, and I'm tied to this thing. Where you go.
What we'll do now, I've connected both these hauling systems together just for ease because it's one person. So you can hear the clutch engaging. It's doing its thing, capturing the rope. And then resetting, super easy with the Ninja. So the beauty of a twin system is that you're keeping both lines equally tight. Right, we will stop there.
Thanks, Guy.
That's a good position. You can see how easily the system works, how stable the structure was. All of these positions give us a lot of room to work within the hauling system. Normally this would be a team of 4 to 6 people, so we're doing okay.
Well, we've had a fabulous time here in the kit room with Guy and the team from Harken. As you can see, it's an amazing piece of kit, and they finally let me loose on it. So, until next time, I'll see you on the next edition of the kit room. Okay, you can let me down now, Guy. Guy? Guy?